here, and then those that will be joining us. Just say, come on into Yah's house. No matter where you're at, that's the beauty of technology. Is we can reach to the far ends of the continent, far ends of the land, stretch over the bodies of water onto our home continent, and just throughout the four corners with modern technology. And that's just the beauty of it. So I welcome everybody that is coming in, and those that will be joining this or viewing this Torah study at your convenience, whether it's at morning, noon, or night. We say shalom, shalom. Welcome to the house of Yah. We've been talking about some things that Kifa had wrote in his letters concerning how everything is going to end up. He talks about the melting away, how this world is held in store by the word of Yahuwah, and it's going to be destroyed by the word of Yahuwah before the new heaven and the new earth comes. But yet there's, looking at the time of everything, for us to assume that the new earth and the new Jerusalem is within our reach would be an error. Shaul thought that the Messiah was going to return in his day until he got to the end of his life, and he realized it's not going to happen in my day. And even for us, once we understand the events that has to take place when it comes to these nations and the destruction of the nations, we realize what has to take place, then we know that there's the element of time that we have to endure. When our Messiah does return, there's going to be 1,000 years of peace on this present earth, this present land that we live in, 1,000 years of peace. And then after that, when the new heaven, new earth is formed and made, then you'll see the new Jerusalem coming down from the Shamayim. But that is a stretch ahead of us. But what are we looking at today? And he says here in 2 Kepha 3 and 10, just kind of do a real quick recapitulation. But the day of Yahuwah will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up. We know that day is coming after the 1,000 years of peace. And he even talks about it in Revelation. You have to take into account Revelation, where Satan and his demons are released from the bottomless pit just for a season. But they're going to be bound in the bottomless pit for 1,000 years. And that 1,000 years is when we're going to have peace and our Messiah is going to reign. But then, like he says here, it's anytime you see the judgment of Yahuwah, anytime there's a judgment of Yahuwah, that is the day of Yahuwah. It's his day. When he ushers in catastrophic judgment, he says, that's my day. That's my day. So when he talks about the day of Yahuwah will come as a thief in the night, we're looking at judgment. That's going to be a day of judgment. It's going to be catastrophic too. So then he goes on to say, when you understand these things, seeing then that all these things shall be dissolved, what manner of persons ought ye to be in all holy conversation and godliness? When I understand judgment day is coming, when I understand that I have an appointment with him and I have to give an account for everything I do in this body, when I understand what it means to be judged, then what type of person should I be? I mean, he's not going to wink at your ignorance. You're not going to be able to say, well, I didn't know, when he'll just bring it back to you, not only what's written in his word, but he'll bring it back every time you sat in a class and heard it. Every time it was taught and you were in attendance. All of that is being recorded. So when I know that these things are going to come to pass, I know the day of Yahuwah is a day of judgment. And in the book of Amos, the prophet Amos, who is he that is asking for the day of Yahuwah? Don't you know the day of Yahuwah is a dreadful day, because we're talking about judgment. And that's one thing we all fear. A lot of us, if you're honest with yourself, you kind of fear judgment, because there's a lot of things we've done, and a lot of things that we hope that, that is not remembered, or we hope that we're not held accountable for. That's just a fact. There's a lot of things. There's things that we've apologized, things that we have confessed, things that we have forsaken, and we're praying for the mercy of Yahuwah. And we're praying that through the Messiah, Yahusha, his life and the blood that was shed, the sacrifice and his life, we're praying and seeking the Most High Yah that has atoned for our sins. That has taken away, once that covenant comes, that's taken away our sins, so that we might be able to live with him in his kingdom and inherit eternal life. But when you know that all these things are going to come to pass, then what are you doing? How are you presenting yourself? Like he says here, what manner of persons ought ye to be? How should you be living your life? How are you going to live your life? When you know these things are going to come to pass. A lot of times with children, those who are immature and are children, we look past a lot of things because they're yet growing up. They're not the age of accountability. They're just children. We got to teach them. We teach them through verbal instruction. We teach them through being harsh to them. We teach them sometimes with the rod of correction. We have to teach them so that once they get to that age of accountability before the Most High, then they'll know that there's things that's expected of them, and then there's things that our Father's just not going to be pleased with. But a lot of times you have to teach that to a child, because if a child left to himself and you ain't teaching it, then it's going to bring hardship to you. It's going to, and then not only to you but to them. So, how should we present ourselves in holy conversation and in Yahuliness? Now, he tells us in Romans chapter 12, because somebody knew I was going here, right? Romans chapter 12, verse 1, he tells us, or Shaul is begging us, he says, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of Yahuwah, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice. Now, that living sacrifice has to be kadesh, or set apart, holy. We say holy, but in the Hebrew, which they spoke, it's kodesh. Kodesh means you are set apart. You don't belong to Satan. You don't belong to him. Not after he has purchased you, right? And some of us know where we can pull that scripture up, right? To where he purchased us. Who knows where that's at? Think about it. We don't belong to ourselves. We are not our own, right? So let's get that. Let's get that in what is it? First Corinthians 6:19. What? He jumps out there, doesn't he? What? Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Ruach HaKodesh, which is in you, which ye have of Yahuwah? What does he say? You don't belong to you. This is my body. This is my thing. I'm going to do what I want to do. Not if you've been bought. No, you don't belong. It don't actually belong to you if he purchased it. And that's what we want, right? For Yahusha to purchase us with his own blood. So if he purchased us with his own blood, he paid the price. We're redeemed by him. We belong to him. So then, if you belong to him, how do you think he wants you to live? He goes on to say, for ye are bought with a price. Therefore, what are we supposed to do? Glorify Yahuwah where? In our body and in our ruach, and it belongs to you. Huh? Oh, he does say that, don't he? Which are Yah's. So don't get so big and bad like you do, hey, I'm going to do what I want with this and it's my thing and all that. No, it's not. Not if he purchased you, it's not. Then he expects you to glorify him, and you can't glorify him in sin. You can't glorify him in transgression. You're in transgression, breaking all his law. You can't glorify him. That's not bringing it to Abba if you doing everything that you can do. And so Torah teaches us how to glorify Yahuwah. If I want to glorify Yahuwah, then I have to go and read the Torah, because the Torah is instructions that he's given us on how to present ourselves before him. And let's go back to Romans, how to present my body a living sacrifice. It's got to be Kodesh, and it's got to be acceptable unto Yahuwah. It's got to be acceptable unto him. And then he goes on to say, that's just reasonable. It's just reasonable. To come out of darkness into this marvelous light, that's just reasonable. To stop puffing and smoking and blunting, and that's just reasonable. To stop being controlled by alcohol where you're drunk. Drunkenness is a sin. He says, no, you can't do that. And he's telling you, that's just reasonable. I'm not telling you something you can't do. To keep your body under subjection, it's just reasonable. How are you going to tell the Most High Yah, I couldn't control my body. I couldn't control the desires of my body. I couldn't control it. How are you going to tell him that when he made the body? He made the body. He equipped you with everything. And then you're going to tell him, I couldn't control it. I can't control myself. That's not going to fly. That's not going to fly. I couldn't stop lying. I couldn't stop cussing. I couldn't stop trying to be like all them rappers. It's tragic that our children gravitate so much to that pop culture. Is that what it is? Or hip hop? Or I think that's what it is, hip hop, right? Hip hop culture, the rap culture. And our children are so gravitated to that, to where you have some mothers that want their sons to grow up and be rappers. They look at that type of lifestyle. They look at the gold, on their fingers and gold chains around their neck, and look at the cars that they drive. And sometimes, fathers and mothers want their kids to grow up to be gangsters. And they just like that lifestyle, the drug industry. But all of that is pretty much a dead end. You can't live a long time. You don't really retire living that kind of life. You don't live very long. I mean, it was just a few years ago. I haven't heard too much of it lately, but a few years ago, rappers were dying. They was getting shot and killed. I mean, it seemed like every month, there goes another rapper goes down. It was just so many of them in a row, and it's like, why do we want our children gravitated to that when we know it's a dead end and it's unpleasing to Yah? So it's just reasonable for me to be a responsible, accountable young man. That's just reasonable. You ain't done nothing great yet. I stopped lying. Well, hallelujah, you stopped lying. But to Most High Yah, that's just reasonable. Why do you find that? Because sometimes we look at some of the sins we committed in our lifetime, and man, we sweating, and then we're so glad we stopped sinning. I'm so glad he delivered. out of that brown bag. I mean, I'm just so glad he delivered me out of that sack. Yeah, but that's just reasonable. That's what he's asked. This book was written well before we came on the scene. So when he says that's your reasonable service, and we want to do backflips. When we are thankful, I'm thankful for where he has brought me from. I'm thankful and I'm grateful. But how do I show my thanks and my gratitude unto him? Yeah, follow it. If you love me, keep my commandments. And because he talked about, we read that in 1 Corinthians, to glorify him in our what? How are we to glorify him? We read it. In our bodies and in our ruach. So he says here, if I want to glorify him, I have to present my body as a living sacrifice, kodesh, set apart, holy, and then acceptable, and it's just reasonable for us. And be not conformed to this world, but what do we have to be? So we can't look at the world and be conformed to that. Sometimes people look at obedience as being cool. Now, how could that be cool? Man, I disobeyed my parents. I stood up to my mama. I cussed my mama out. Oh, man, you pumping. Oh, man, that's cool. What's so cool about that? What is cool about that when you're in trouble with Yah? Because our book teaches us that we're to honor our father and mother. We're to honor them. And in the book of Psalms, it tells us that's the first commandment with promise. Because you can live a good long time and live a good, healthy life. Even the heathens and the Gentiles, they can live a long, healthy life if they honor their father and mother. Because that is a law handed down from Yah, given unto us. And I know, well, you just don't know my mama. You say that, preacher, because you don't know my mama. You don't know my daddy. That's why you can say that. But there's principles that he's given us, and I can honor my father and mother without doing what they want me to do, especially if I know it's bad. If I know hey, son, get your gun. We're going to go rob this store. And you better honor me because I'm your dad. No, wait a minute, time out, Dad. Wait a minute, time out, Dad. That same commandment that you just quoted, there's another commandment that says what? Thou shalt not kill, and thou shalt not what? Thou shalt not steal. So, Daddy, you trying to quote that, I'm quoting it back to you. Thou shalt not steal. So I'm not dishonoring you, but I got to keep the commandments of Yahuwah. And didn't Yahusha say in his ministry, in the days of his flesh when he ministered, he said that if anybody loves father or mother, and he knew the commandments now, but he said if anybody loves father and mother more than, they're not worthy of me. He's not telling you to break the commandments. He's just letting you know he transcends. He transcends that. You got to love me, and you show you love me by keeping the commandments. So he wasn't telling us not to love father and mother. He was just letting you know where his place is, where he's supposed to have the preeminence, and that's at top. He's got to have the preeminence at top. So we have to learn how to glorify him. We have to learn how to present ourselves unto him. We have to learn how to be Kodesh unto him. My whole lifestyle. And if it's your whole lifestyle, so let's go back to what he says in 2 Kepha. He says, seeing that these things shall be dissolved, what manner of person ought ye to be in Kodesh, conversation, and your holiness? That's your lifestyle. So you can't live amongst the Yahudim one way and then go live with your heathen neighbors another way. That don't work. That don't work because the way I live and present myself unto the Most High Yah with you, same way I have to live and present myself when I'm not in your company. You know, in all holy your holiness conversation, which is your conduct and your lifestyle, with your holiness, looking for and hastening unto the coming of the day of Yahuwah, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. Nevertheless, we, according to his promise, look for new heavens and a new earth, wherein dwelleth righteousness. Because if you make the kingdom, you're going to have to live right. You make the kingdom, you're going to have to live right. And everything that's written in this book, the Torah, the instruction that's written in this book, because right now we got to open up the book, we got to read it and study it. But you make the kingdom, where is it going to be? It's going to be in your mind and your heart. You ain't going to need no book. You ain't going to need no book. And I know a lot of people feel that we're under the new covenant now. Then close your Bible up. Don't use the Bible. You don't even need a Bible in your home. What you doing riding around with a Bible in your car? I thought you was under the new covenant. Turn to the prophet Jeremiah. Why? I thought you had it written. I thought you were under the new covenant. It should be in your mind and your heart. We still refer to the book because it hasn't been written in our mind and our heart. We try. How many of us try to write it in our mind? How do we do, when we say we're writing it in our minds, what are we doing? We're memorizing it. So we're trying to write it in our minds. We're memorizing. I know what this verse is. I know where that verse, I know what this says. I know, and you should be able to quote all Genesis. Just quote Genesis for me. Well, ain't you on the new covenant? It hasn't been written yet. It's still written on stone, even though we've translated it from stone, because when they found those tablets and everything, we translated it from stone onto paper. Then we translated from paper we done it electronically, right? And the next step is it just has to be here and here. It just has to be there. We're just gradually getting there when you look at the progress that we've made from when he wrote it in stone with his finger to where they wrote it on, what do you call that, papyrus paper, papyrus and the scrolls, and they wrote it on the scrolls. Then we put it in a book form, and then now it's electronic. Well, the next thing is it's just going to be here and here. We're gonna develop and grow in a consciousness from being electronic here to where we're just gonna know it. So you see the progress, you see the development as we go along. A new heaven. Okay, now let's listen to what. Now, when he's warning you about how this is going to end up, and it should scare it. Maybe it shouldn't scare us, but the alarm should go off. There should be some alarms. I can't escape the day of Yahuwah. And so when I know what that day is going to be, then I got to know. I know that I have to present myself. I know that I've been bought with I know that I don't belong to myself, and so it says in Deuteronomy, it tells us that we need to walk what do you say? Circumspectly, right? Which means very cautiously. I got to be very, very cautious. And we even brought out in Shabbat about James in the first chapter where he was talking about when you first get lust, and then when lust is conceived, it brings forth sin. Sin, when it is finished, it brings forth death. Then he tells us, he says, brethren, do not err. That's what he says. So we have a mindset. And we get an understanding through the word. And Kepha was trying to drive a point home. He was really trying to drive a point home about how drastic, how dramatic how astounding it's going to be at that day. I mean, he's trying to shake us and say, hey, look, y'all, when you see this going on, the day of Yah, and then, he's going to, I mean, can you even fathom the earth melting with fervent heat? Can you know what that sounds? It sounds like a thermonuclear. All of a sudden, things become thermonuclear. Just everything just starts melting. The sky is going to melt. I mean, when you look at the devastation and how dramatic that's going to be, alarms ought to go off. I want to be able to make it through that. Because when that happens, by the time that happens, we should already have our bodies to where we're not going to die by the time that happens. Everybody's not going to have a body like that, but we should have a body like that to where we're not going to perish, but we will witness it. And so he's trying to, with the knowledge that he had, the words that he was using, he was trying to really rattle your cages. Come on, brethren. Come on now. And so he goes on, wherefore, beloved, seeing that ye look for such things, be diligent that ye may be found of him in peace, in shalom, without spot, and because that's what when he's telling you that what manner of person ought you to be, and all Kodesh conversation and Yahuliness, he goes on to say, be diligent that ye may be found of him in shalom. And these are the beloved, wherefore beloved, which means these are the people he loved. Found of him in shalom, without spot and blameless. And we know that Shaul wanted to present the congregation and assembly of the Corinth assembly. He wanted to present them unto the Mashiach as a what? Chaste virgin in the midst of all the problems they had. Because there was a lot of stuff going on in that Corinth church, that Corinth assembly. There's a lot of stuff going on. But through his teaching, he was trying to teach them because he wanted to, this is my work. And so as you are my work, then I want to be able to say, behold, Yahusha, a chaste virgin for you. And that was his desire. And being without spot or being blameless means they can't accuse you of transgression against Yah. Because even Kepha he says, as touching the law, I'm what? I'm blameless. There's no accusation you can make on me that transgress his law. Ain't nothing you can do it. He says, as far as his law, touching his law, hey, I'm blameless. You can't indict me on anything that is written in the law that's written for me. You can't indict me on it. And that's being blamed. So these brothers are telling you, hey, y'all, I'm trying to warn you. This is how you need to be. If you want to take this serious or you just want to, some of us think we got 9 lives or we got 9 souls. Some of us think we got all kind of time. Some of us think, I'm just going to ask him for a do-over. We get to the end. Father, Yah, you put me in an unwinnable situation. I'm just going to ask you politely, Yah, if I can have a do-over. Can I do this over? But sometimes that's how we, when you look at people in their lives and stuff, it's like, well, you guys think you're going to get do-overs or what? I mean, so it's high time that we awake out of sleep. It's now is the day of salvation. And he says in the day of salvation, when he's calling you, what are you supposed to do? Don't harden your heart. No, when he's dealing with you, hey, don't harden your heart. Oh, I'll be glad when I'm getting out of here. I'm, I don't believe, you believe anything? I don't believe nothing he said. You just huffing and puffing. When Yah was dealing with your heart. But it happened to Yasharel because in Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 16, he told him to walk in the way, which is the good way, where you will find rest for your soul. But they said, we ain't going to walk in it. We ain't going to do it. You know, you have people like that today. You got people like that today. Yeah, I know you're right. I ain't going to do it, though. Yes. Uh-huh. Right, right. Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah, right. Because a lot of people have their own cultural concept of how things are going to end up, how, who he is and everything. And that's driven by culture. And so through their cultural understanding, then that's what they see. And you try to tell them, no, that's not. And all you got to do is do your research. Yeah, no, right, right. Yeah, I'd say he was Hebrew. Yeah, right, 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 right. And see that picture came out in the Renaissance. If you study the Renaissance period, that's when the Western culture started to paint everything to look like them. And so when it came to the Messiah or the Madonna and all that other stuff, they painted him to look like them. And that's where it all started from. Because in our culture, we weren't supposed to make any likeness of the Most High Yah or to where you would bow down and serve. He said, when I appeared to you, you didn't see no image of a man or a woman. You didn't see no image of a beast or anything. And we weren't supposed to make any image. Doesn't mean you don't have images of family and friends. And how did they know when Yahusha was transfigured? How did they know that was Moses and Elijah or Musha and Aliyah? How did they know that? They must have known there must have been some type of imagery. They kind of knew it. Even when, for example, when where was that? It's in Kings, where They wanted to get, who was it? Jehoshaphat, I think, and Ahab, and they wanted to get a word from, and they asked about, what did he look like? Because they got a word that came, well, the prophet said, they said, who said that? What did he look like? Well, he had, hair, long beard, and that's Aliyah. They they knew it was him after he described him to them. So there you did have certain image, but we're not supposed to have imagery to where we bow down and serve it, or we say this is our God, which that's exactly what they did. They gave you an image of a man and told you that's your God. That didn't come from us. That came from them. And they told us that. And so we as sheep, all of us want to, if you really ask, we want to be saved. Folks want to be saved. And we used to say, it don't really matter if he's black, white, yellow, green, polka dot, orange. To us, it didn't matter because we just wanted to be saved. But they gave us that image and told us, this is your God. Well, no, wait a minute now. That's not my God. That's not my God. But they try to enforce that, and that's culturally driven. So he says here in without spot and blameless. So listen to what he's dealing with now. What do we talk about since I've been here? We've been talking about, how do we present ourselves, right? We've been talking about, because he says, seeing that these things are going to come to pass, how ought you to be in, so you're in your set apartness, your holiness, how are you? So he's talking about your conduct. He's talking about your lifestyle. He's talking about, even here when he says found of him in peace or shalom, without spot and blameless. Is he talking about blameless according to the United States code? He ain't talking about that kind of blameless. No, when he's talking about blameless, he's talking about before him. He's already given us instructions. He's already given us instructions on how to live. And so if I'm going to be blameless, I have to be obedient, like Shaul says, as touching the law, the Torah. Hey, I'm blameless. You can't indict me or anything like that. So this is what he's dealing with. So listen to what he says. Listen to what he says. An account that the long-suffering of Yahusha is soteria, or salvation, or deliverance. Even as our beloved brother Shaul also, according to the wisdom given unto him, hath written unto you. Take into account, listen to what he says. As also in all epistles, speaking in them of these things, in which are some things hard to be understood, which they that are unlearned and unstable wrest, as they do also the other scriptures, unto their own destruction. Are you listening? Are you listening? What is he referring to, or what is he talking about here? When he says, Shaul speaking in them of things in which some things are hard to be understood, which they that are unlearned and unstable, what do? They wrestle with it, as the other scriptures, talking about, they're looking at Shaul's epistles, and they're also looking at the other scriptures, which is the Hebrew Torah. And he says, you're looking at Shaul's letters, and you're being unlearned, and you're unstable, so you're wrestling with it. You're wrestling with it. And by doing that, you're going to be destroyed. You're going to be destroyed. If you're wrestling with the scriptures and with Shaul's letters, and you having a hard time, and you're dealing, because Kepha, in this whole discourse here, he's trying to tell you how you should be, how you should live, because we know all this is going to be destroyed. We know it's going to be destroyed, and he gives us the type of fashion. It's going to be very dramatic fashion. It's all going to be. So if you want to escape that, this is what you have to do to be blameless, to be without spot, all right, and to be pleasing unto him, and to live in peace. So he goes on to say, he's telling them now, if you're unlearned and unstable, you're going to rest to your own destruction. So he gives them some advice. Listen to what his advice is in verse number 17. Ye therefore, beloved, seeing ye know these things before. What is he talking about? Everything that he just went through. Where he's talking about the, what's coming, the destruction, the day of Yahuwah, all this and that. So he's talking about, then he says, we want to be able to escape that. We got to be, what manner of person are we to be, so we can escape all of this that's coming, and how to be without spot, to live in shalom, and to be blameless. So he's giving you a little advice now. He says, ye therefore, beloved, seeing ye know these things before. You know this is going to happen now. Beware. Beware, lest ye also, so when he's saying ye also, he's talking about those that up here in verse number 16. When he says, lest ye also, and he's referring to those 16. What does he warn them? He don't want them to be what? Yeah, in verse 16. Hey, I don't want you to be what? Unlearned, unstable, and then what happened? What's the end result? What he's saying is, hey, I don't want y'all to be like that. I don't want you to be destroyed. I don't want you to see your destruction. So he's saying, beware, lest ye also, being led away with the air of the wicked. Being led away with the air of the wicked. Fall from your own steadfastness. Now, this is the steadfastness that Kepha was speaking in his day. I heard somebody teach on this, preach on it years ago, and y'all probably know who it is. And he was talking about how a presiding bishop was leading people away from their steadfastness. And so the church was turning into the world, and he was using this verse to what do you call that, transpose or to extrapolate out of here what the true meaning. See, when you get into this here and you start to eisegete means you start to explain it using your own cultural influences, your own education, and you start to explain it through your own lens. That's eisegesis. Exegesis is when you use the scriptures or you use the Bible to define it and to explain it. So if I'm going to exegete this, then I have to go to the Bible. I have to go through scripture, because I know in order to teach doctrine, you have to have precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little, there a little, and that's how we understand doctrine. That's how you exegete. So I can't, it would be illegal of me to eisegete and take you back to the 40s, 1940, before World War II, before World War I. That's eisegesis. Exegesis is when you go into the book and you allow the precept upon precept to explain it to you. So, ye therefore, beloved, seeing ye know these things before, beware lest ye also, being led away with the air of the wicked, fall from your own steadfastness. So, in verse 16, he was giving them a warning, right? And he's telling them now, if you're unlearned and you're unstable and you wrestle with the scriptures and Shaul's letters, you're going to what? You're going to be destroyed. You're going to be destroyed. So when he tells them here, hey, I don't want you to be led away and fall from your steadfastness. What was the steadfastness they were keeping in that day? It was keeping Torah. They was keeping the instructions that was given to them. They were keeping that, right? But some got led away, because it sure sounds like Shaul was telling us we don't need it. There's a contradiction between what Shaul teaches, what Yahusha taught, and what Moses taught. Let's look at yes. Yeah. You should have known. Yeah, right. Because Kepha is starting to, because with every generation, if we drop the ball in our generation, unless Yah opens the eyes and understanding of the next generation, it's just going to cascade. They're not going to know. They're not going to know. So if somebody doesn't know Scripture, if you give them a book and it starts at Matthew and it goes to Revelation and they never know what is said before, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, wait a minute, you guys are way off base. No, you have to read this and everything. And anybody that's really rooted in Shaul's teachings, and that's all they know, and then you give them Genesis to Malachi, oh, they'll blow a rod. It's like, wait, what? What they'll do? No, I don't want that. I just don't want that. I'll keep Shaul's letters. Yes. Yeah. Right. Trying to get a way out. And if somebody today, if all they know is Romans through Revelation or Romans through Jude, they call him Jude, but his name is Yehuda. Romans through Yehuda, if that's all they know, they're going to have a hard time if they make the kingdom at all. They're going to have a hard time if they make it. Yes. Oh yeah, I know it. If he doesn't open it up for you, you gonna struggle. You'd be surprised because once he opens your eyes and opens your understanding, and you still hear what you're going. Oh man, you guys are blind. You just don't see it. And it's not a difficult thing to do to be pleasing unto Yah, to be blameless. It's not difficult. In fact, there's a lot of things they put on you, fence law, all kind of stuff. Even in the Roman religion, they put a lot of stuff on you that's not even, in the scriptures. Not even biblical. It's not even in the Bible. So so he's telling them here, he's telling them now, I don't want y'all, at, even if you don't understand something, just be steadfast in what you're doing. And I'm talking about when he wrote this, he's telling them, just be steadfast in what you're doing now. Even if you don't understand, don't move off that dime, because some people have been led away from that and they're going to be destroyed. He says, no, you guys don't do that. Just stay steadfast. I don't understand everything that Shaul taught and he wrote and he went to the Gentile. I don't understand all that. Well, don't move off your steadfastness. Yes. Yeah. And there's things that we've been taught and we learn, hey, that's some good stuff. There's some things about being holy or set apart. Hey, I have to, that's pleasing unto you. Y'all don't want us to be looking like this nation and other nations. Don't want us to be looking like certain cultures and things like that's not how we're supposed to present ourselves before Yah. There's just certain things a certain way we have to conduct ourselves. Yah gave Yasharel in the 16th chapter of Ezekiel, Yakazakal, and he said, I adorn you. I made you beautiful. I made you beautiful. I'm the one that put that, your hair looks good, your face looks good. I adorn you with, how he adorned them with jewels and everything like. He said you was beautiful. But what did they do? They went and played the harlot. It wasn't, I don't want to look good for Yah. I want to look good for him. I don't want to look good for Yah. Man, they got it going on, man. They want to be like the rest of the world. They got the market, they got the money, they got all that. I just want a piece. So I'm going over here. And so what Yasharel did was they forsook Yahuwah and went to these other nations, and to him, that's playing adultery, to Abiyah, because he ain't into sex. Abiyah's not into sex. But he calls it adultery and idolatry because you left me and you joined yourself to these other nations. And to him, that's like a wife leaving her husband to go with a neighbor or somebody down the street or somebody else. That's how he looked at it. He even told Hosea, we say Hosea, but Husha, go marry a harlot, because I want to show you how Israel is to me. So he told him to do that. And even her second child, I don't think was by Hosea. And they was in a marriage. But he was trying to show him, that's what Israel did to me. He's trying to show Yasharel, that's what y'all did to me. And he said, I'm jealous. Now that's to have El Elyon, the Most High, jealous of you. Because he ain't jealous of no other nation. He was jealous of Yasharel. He said, I'm jealous. Because I chose you. I betrothed you. You was my wife. I decked you out. I made you beautiful. And then you go play the whore. Yes. Mm-hmm. I think he's always been jealous of us, but when he spoke his prophecy to Moses, because Moses spoke the prophecy, that was when they came out of Egypt in the wilderness. He spoke that prophecy. Abiyah knew it. He said, I seen this people. He all the way down through time. He told, I seen this people. So he knew what they was going to do. That's why Moses could say, you're going to be in wood and stone. You're going to serve all these Elohim, wood and stone. I mean, he didn't know what wood and stone meant then, but we know what it means now. And so was he jealous then when I think there's an element of jealous, but he excuse me, in prophecy, he said just in Isaiah, the 10th chapter, he says, just a remnant's going to return to me. Just a remnant, not all Yasharel. Because you look at Yasharel now, we're scattered to the four corners. He said only a remnant. They said there's about 50 million in United States. But that ain't, out of that, you're just talking about a remnant that's going to. And I see it. I certainly see it. Because you can talk to some folks till you blue in the face. They ain't moving. They ain't returning. Ain't no Teshuba. They ain't coming back. And that's prophecy. But he said that he has a people, and he's even preserved the seed of Abraham, because Jacob's seed has mixed with all the other nations. But even in that mixing, he still preserved a seed of these tribes, where he's got 12,000. So there's still a seed that he's preserved. We might not know, because some of us don't know, but a lot of us, the mixing is going on, but he says, "Nah, because that's one thing about Yah. He's never left himself without a witness. He's always gonna have it. He's always gonna have it, So many of us won't return, but those who return, it's gonna be worth it. Those who return. And, there's some things that we learned on the other side. I mean, Yah wants us to be separate. He does. He wants us to be set. That's what holy is, Kodesh, set apart for me. I can't be set apart for him, and I desire to be like Kanye. That's not being set apart for him. I can't be set apart for him, and I'm trying to do everything that, I don't know, LL Cool J, who, Ice Cube, who, well, I don't know. Jay-Z, our daughters want to be like Glorilla, really? Do- Doja Cat. So I mean, what? Really? Y'all daughters of Zion. I mean, we had to present now we have to present ourselves. There's a certain way we present ourselves, because we're royalty. We're royalty. When you understand royalty, and we see glimpses of it from other nations, and we see how that's the royalty. I mean, there's just a certain way they present themselves when they step out of the house. And we have to realize that we're royal. Our daughters and our wives shouldn't be stepping out of the house showing all their curves. Boobies sticking out. They bend over and I mean there's a certain way we present ourselves when we go out, and I don't have nothing against jewelry unless it turns you from Yah, because that's what happened to Yasharel. He said, I gave it to you, but look what happened. You turned into idol, you played the adultery, played the harlot. So, I mean, if you allow it to move you away from Yah, you need to put it down. And so what they was telling us was, Yah, I don't know, you ain't got no self-control. Take it off. Because you ain't got no self-control. You can't do it. Well, wait a minute. I mean, we can do it. We have to be temperate in all things, which means self-control. And when he's given us certain things to beautify ourselves, we can't look like the world. I mean, for a while there, all the clothing had to be so tight on you, right? I don't know if it's still like that, but it was for a while. Everything has to be tight. It's like, really? I mean, we don't have to wear tight clothing. Just, present yourselves. But anyway, my time is, man, I want to give you one example, and maybe we'll get into this if we have more time. But I want to give you one example where he talked about, don't move from your steadfast. What does he say? Lest you be led away and fall from your own steadfastness. So let me give you an example with this. In Acts, the book of Acts, chapter 21 and verse number 17, I'll give you an example. All right, see if you can pick this up. And when we were come to Jerusalem, the brethren received us gladly. And the day following, Shaul went in with us unto Jacob, and all the elders were present. And when he had saluted them, he declared particularly what things Yahuwah had wrought among the Gentiles by his ministry. And when they heard, they glorified Yahuwah, and said unto him, Thou seest, brother, how many thousands of Yahudim there are which believe, and that are all zealous of the law? And they are informed of thee, Shaul, that thou teachest all the Yahudim which are among the Gentiles to forsake Moses, saying that they ought not to circumcise their children, neither to walk after the customs. Does this sound familiar? Because he deals with this in the book of Galatians that we just for a moment there so we were studying the 3rd chapter there, but he's dealing with Galatians and then also the 15th chapter. 15th chapter of Acts and Galatians kind of, 15th chapter of Acts happens, then Galatians happens, and then you got the 21st chapter here. So there's some key things in verse 21. Some key things in verse 21. So I'm going to read it again and then see if you pick it up. And they are informed of thee that thou teachest all the Yahudim which are among the Gentiles to forsake Moses, saying that they ought not to circumcise their children, neither to walk after the customs. And then he goes, what is it, therefore? The multitude must needs come together, for they will hear that thou art come. So in verse number 21, he's dealing with something there. Can you see it? In verse 21. You can't see it all? Let me. And they are informed of thee. Yeah. But there's something, there's a key in here. There's a key in there. No. Listen to, and they are informed of thee that thou teachest all the Yahudim which are among the Gentiles to forsake Moses, saying that they ought not to circumcise their children, neither to walk after the customs. Yeah, but there's two groups of people in this verse. Huh? The Yahudim that are among the Gentiles. Right. They're Yahudim that are among the Gentiles. Because what is he dealing with when it comes to the Yahudim among the Gentiles? What is he dealing with? Because he tells you right here, what is he dealing with? The covenant that was given to Yahudim, not the Gentiles. Not the Gentiles. That's what he says. Thou teachest all the Yahudim, which are among the Gentiles, to forsake Moses. So he's not dealing with the Gentiles. He's dealing with the Yahudim. And why is he dealing with the Yahudim? Because, see, there was some miscommunication. That's why they wanted to have this council. Wait a minute, I'm hearing some raw stuff now. Because as a Yahudim, it was commanded for them to do what? Circumcise on the 8th day. Keep the law. That was given, it wasn't given to the Gentiles. So when Paul's dealing with a mixed multitude, and some of the, when you go to even up in this chapter here, which is telling some of the Gentiles, you got to circumcise your son and keep the law of Moses. That wasn't given to them. That wasn't given to them. That was given to Yasharel. And so Shaul, as a Yahudim or a Benjamite, Shaul as a Benjamite was telling all these other Israelites, you guys don't have to do that. But was he actually telling the Israelites that, or was he telling the Gentiles? Because as a Gentile, if they don't circumcise their son, they haven't broken the commandment or the covenant. But if Yasharel doesn't circumcise their son, then they broke the covenant. So you got two different things here. Now, if once we get into the kingdom and the Gentiles want to live amongst us, let me show you that. Let me show you something. In Ezekiel 47 and verse number 22. Ezekiel 47:22. And it shall come to pass, and this is in the kingdom. This is in the future. And it shall come to pass that ye shall divide it by lot for an inheritance unto you and to the strangers that sojourn among you, which shall begat children among you. And they shall be unto you as born in the country among the children of Yasharel. Now, if these are strangers that sojourning with Israel, and they have their inheritance in the land, in the country with them, then they're going to have to go ahead and circumcise them. Go ahead and circumcise them. If you want to stay here now, if you don't want to do it, got to get out. Yes. Yeah, and a lot of them would do that with their children, but Paul wasn't mandating that these mature men get circumcised that were Gentiles. He was not mandating that. But the word got back, you're teaching the Yahudim not to circumcise their children on the 8th day and keep the law of Moses, because you have to do it on the 8th day to keep the law of Moses. And so there was a little confusion there. And wait a minute, what am I hearing? Because they even said they're going to hear that you hear, because we've been hearing a lot of stuff. So when we just have this small room here, we got people here. If I tell Octaneer something, and then he's going to repeat it to a Koti Tiffany, and gets repeated, by the time it gets to Maisha here, so it won't be the same. It's like, and then she hears it, she's like, did you say that? She might be, wait, time out. No, somebody added a word or took a word out or something that didn't sound right. So, yeah, I mean, so these are things that they had to deal with, an issue, because Shaul was telling the adult Gentiles in the Galatians, hey, y'all, no, you ain't got to circumcise yourself and keep the law of Moses. But they were taking it like, you're teaching the Yahudim among the Gentiles? Because there was no doubt some Yahudim that was there, because you had Yahudim among the Gentiles. So Paul, who wanted to go to the Gentiles to to bring people into the kingdom, different nations into the kingdom, because there is going to be strangers, like it says here, they shall have inheritance with you among the tribes of Yasharel, and it shall come to pass that in what tribe the stranger sojourneth, there shall ye give him his inheritance, saith the sovereign Yahuwah. And this is in the new, this is not past tense, this is up in the future. When you read Ezekiel, starting at verse or chapter, I think it's 44, from chapter 44 to chapter 48, you're dealing with the new Jerusalem, the new land, and when we're on the land and everything in the kingdom. Yes. If you're an Israelite, you should be keeping that. Well, and the reason, because we're not, even us, we can't keep it by the letter, because we're not in the land, and we're not a nation. So we're scattered to the four corners. We're still in captivity. We're not self-governed. So there's a lot of things that we can't keep, but what we can keep is the 10 Commandments. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and because he says here, yeah, yeah. Yeah, in the 15th chapter of Acts, um, yeah, Yeah. So he says here, verse number 19, wherefore my sentence is, and I think this is Jacob because he was over um, Jerusalem. Wherefore my sentence is that we trouble not them which from among the Gentiles are turned to Yahuwah, but that we write unto them that they abstain from pollution of idols, which is in the law, from fornication, which is in the law, and from things strangled, and from blood, which is in the law. But he goes on to say, for Moses of old time hath in every city them that preach him, being read in the synagogues every Shabbat day. So right now we're telling you, you know, food that's offered to idols, that's pollution. We're not supposed to do that. So let's tell the Gentiles to do that. Don't be committing fornication. That's against our Torah, against our law. Things strangled, and don't be eating blood. I mean, that's just, so um, we won't charge them with anything else right now because every Shabbat we're going to teach Moses. That's what it says here. And then they'll get an understanding because it does take time to line up with Yah. It took Yasharel a little time to line up with them, even in the wilderness. And coming out, it still took time to line up with him. So it does take some time to line up. And even when we had awakened, for us to start to keep the Torah the way he wants us to keep the Torah, it takes time. But it's not grievous. It hasn't changed our lives drastically. Not mine, but I know I got to keep the Shabbat. I keep the feast days. I know that. I got to abstain from certain things. But I was doing that well before I woke up. I started putting away swine in the 80s, except for sausage pizza. That's the only time until I got stood up and I stopped on a dime. Right then and there. That's it. But it takes time to align, with the Most High. So now in the New Jerusalem, if you could be a Yahudim or you could be a stranger amongst the land, but if you get caught eating that swine and all that other stuff, and the mice and the abominable, you're out. Trying to hide, you're out. That's it. In fact, that verse says you're going to perish. That verse says you're going to perish. That's in Isaiah 66, I think, verse 17. He says you're going to perish. That's for Yasharel and any stranger that's sojourning with us. So they're going to have to, like right now, because we're spread to the four corners and we don't have our kingdom and we're not, self-governed, because Yasharel is not self-governed. And when we become self-governed, Yahusha is going to sit on the throne. That's when we become self-governed. And he's going to sit on the throne. Then if you're going to be with us, you got to be with us. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's no. Yeah. He's going to gather because Yahusha gave us that parable of the dragnet. I think the 13th chapter of Matthew, I think it is. But he's going to gather all of this is just a dragnet. He's just gathering all the fish. And then he's going to bring it to shore. Then he starts to sort. It is, and Ezekiel says that. He's going to get rid of all the transgressors and all the rebels. He says, you made it out, which is that dragnet, but you didn't make it in the kingdom. But what was promised to those who are born again of the Ruach HaKodesh, being immersed in the name, born again, what's promised unto them is to be like the angels, have eternal, will have eternal life, will be in the order of Yahusha to where we'll reign with him as kings and priests, because that's not given to everybody. There's going to be hierarchy in the kingdom. There's going to be hierarchy. You got different levels. But those who transgress and deliberately go against him, you're not going to make the kingdom, because in order to be in the kingdom, you got to be obedient. So you're going to have people just not going to make the kingdom. That's just how. Okay, any questions or comments out there? If not, we're going to bring this to a close. 7:47 Central Standard Time, whatever time it is in your location. But we're going to bring this to a close. We thank you for joining us, being with us in this Torah study. And we'll be back on the Shabbat for our Shabbat teaching. And we do welcome you to come on back and be with us. And if you can't pick it up live, just pick it up at your convenience as we are on Facebook and YouTube. Now, I noticed that some of our YouTube programming, we can only keep so much out there for so long. They just get rid of a lot of live events. You can only keep them so long because I guess it's because of storage. There's just a lot of storage out there. All right, so let's remember Shabbat coming up Friday. Friday we have our Shabbat prayer at 6 o'clock Standard Time on Friday in the Telegram app. We got to get Emal Carruthers in there. She wants to be a part of our prayer at 6 o'clock to usher in the Shabbat. And then our Shabbat class, Shabbat service at 11 o'clock to 11:30's prayer. 11:30, we have our Shabbat service. And then we have a movie night on Sunday at 5 p.m. What's showing, I don't know yet what's showing this, but we'll have movie night here Sunday at 5. Monday is our discussion. It's just we have our Torah discussion on Monday at 6 o'clock. And I usually who knows what I said this past Monday? Because we were on there, and because I told you what to read, right, on Shabbat day, First Corinthians chapter 9. And so we dealt with how we have to be, to win people over, and because Paul dealt with that. But Paul says even when he was going to those who didn't have no law, he was with them as without law, but not being without the law of the Mashiach unto the Most High. He says that, so I'm not telling you I'm lawless. But I appear to, I talk with them and stuff because I'm trying to win them over. So I'm not telling you I'm lawless, but since they're not under the law, because even there was a time where we see that in the 10th chapter of Acts, where Kepha says, it's not lawful for a Yehudi to. No, Acts chapter 10 with Kepha. Yeah, but he went to Cornelius' house, and he says, it's not lawful for a Yahudim to come into the house of a Gentile. That was not lawful for us. But he says, but Yahuwah has told me what he has cleaned up, I can't call unclean. Because that's what that vision was about. All right, so we're going to say goodnight to you. And come on back and be with us on the Shabbat. I don't see any questions or comments. Anybody see any questions or comments? Because we don't have any here. None. All right. So we're going to say shalom. Shalom.